The road to Ashmourne was buried in a silence too thick for wind. My boots crunched over frost as I passed the rusted welcome sign leaning sideways, half swallowed by snowdrift. No tire tracks behind me, no bird calls overhead, just the steady hiss of breath inside my mask and the soft metallic clink of the rifle strapped across my chest. The town lay ahead, 30 or so buildings tucked in a narrow valley, ringed by skeletal pines and stone-blasted hills. No movement, no light. A fog rolled low across the street like something alive, thick as smoke and stinking faintly of copper. They told me there were 512 residents here before the first night. Now, no confirmed survivors. I parked outside the sheriff's station and kept the engine running. Didn't want to lose the only heat I'd get tonight, but I still stepped out. I always do my first pass on foot. Trust your instincts before your instruments. Rule 1. I made it 10 feet before the first alarm bell went off in my head. Something about the buildings. Doors stood open but not kicked in. Windows unbroken. No signs of panic, just abandonment. As if everyone simply stepped outside at once and forgot to come back. Inside the station, the heat was long dead. I pulled the power node from my pack and jammed it into the wall. The interior lights flickered, then buzzed to life, flickering yellow. Papers littered the desks. A half-eaten donut sat fossilized on the break room table. One of the chairs was still spinning. Something had happened fast, but not messy. That was worse. I spent the afternoon fortifying, nailed plywood across the front windows, set motion sensors across the main street, and a few crude traps in the alleyway, tripwires linked to old bear bells. If anything moved out there tonight, I'd hear it. At 5:13 p.m., the sun dipped below the tree line. By 5:21, it was dark. Then, at 5:38, the whispering started. It began in the vents. At first, I thought it was the wind. Then I heard my name. Lucas. Soft, clear, like it was being exhaled through a grin. I froze, rifle raised, listening hard. The vents stopped. Then came another voice, this one from the far window. Come outside. I crept to the slit I'd left open between the boards. A figure stood across the street, too tall, its spine arched backward like it didn't understand how to wear a human body. Limbs wrong, skin sagging in places and stretched tight in others, like it had been sewn together too fast. It tilted its head. Then another voice came, my sister's voice. But my sister's been dead for 5 years. Please, Luke, help me. I didn't fire. Not yet. I needed answers more than blood. So, I waited. At 6:17, the thing turned and melted into the fog. By 7 o'clock, 3 more had passed the station, each time stopping to whisper something personal. Someone I knew, someone I lost. The bastards had memories, or they were pulling them from my head. By midnight, the whispers stopped. I didn't sleep, didn't blink much either. At 4:42 a.m., someone pounded on the front door. 3 rapid hits, then silence. I aimed down the hallway, trigger finger ready. Open up, a voice hissed. They're coming back. A woman, breathless, desperate. I yanked the door open and pulled her inside. Blood soaked her coat. Her face was scratched to hell, eyes wide and wild. She collapsed into a chair and stared at the floor. "I watched them eat my husband," she said, barely above a whisper. "They wore his skin the next night." I asked her name. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked up at me with a trembling jaw and said, "First night's the warning. Second night's the hunt. Third night." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. The woman didn't make it to morning. I found her in the corner of the sheriff's office, curled in on herself like a child, eyes open, mouth still moving. But she was gone. Nothing left in her but echoes. I gave her a clean round through the skull, just in case whatever took her husband wanted to come wear her next. Then I started preparing for the second night. By noon, the snow had begun to fall again, not a gentle curtain, but something thick and aggressive, like a warning. Temperatures dropped faster than they should have. My thermals barely kept the chill from sinking into the bone. Every breath was missed, every sound muffled. I relocated to a 2-story house 3 doors down. More choke points, higher ground. I laid tripwires across every stairwell and covered the front and back with motion sensors and magnesium flares. Then I waited. At 6:02 p.m., the sun vanished like it had been swallowed. At 6:04, the flares went off. The screams that followed weren't human. They were close. Outside the front door, something slammed against the wood, not trying to break it, but testing it, feeling it. A claw scraped down the siding like it was drawing a map of the house by touch. Then silence. I backed up slowly into the stairwell, rifle raised. That's when I heard the back window shatter. I moved fast, cleared the hallway, turned the corner, and there it was. The thing that had crawled inside wasn't the one I saw last night. This one had no face. Its skin looked melted like wax over bone. It ran on all fours, dragging a hind leg twisted at the wrong angle. It screamed again, but not from a mouth, from its chest. A hole there opened wide like a second throat, gurgling with black fluid. I pulled the trigger and dropped it with 3 rounds to the torso. It got back up. I switched to incendiary. 1 grenade into its path. That did the job. The room lit up, orange and yellow. It wailed like it was dying for the second time, then collapsed in on itself, a pile of meat turning to ash. I didn't have time to catch my breath. The front door splintered. I spun around as 2 more came in, faster than the first, taller, thinner. Faces stretched over pointed skulls like someone had pulled the skin too tight. They didn't attack straight on. They circled me. 1 moved to the left, 1 to the right. Smart. I shot left first, clipped the leg, slowed it, spun to hit the right. The thing dodged unnaturally, like it knew how I'd aim before I moved. It lunged, clawed my shoulder. I dropped to 1 knee, teeth clenched, vision flaring white. It reared up to finish me. And I jammed a magnesium flare into its mouth and cracked it against its teeth. It swallowed light and screamed fire. I stumbled upstairs, shoulder soaked in blood. barricaded the hallway with a dresser. Heard them below, 4 or 5 now, moving through the house, sniffing, clicking. One of them was calling my name again, not whispering now, mocking. Lucas. My dead sister's voice again, louder this time, laughing. At 1:15 a.m., they stopped circling and started charging. I fought them room to room, floor to floor, bled from my shoulder, my leg, a slice across my ribs. My head was ringing, my hands slick, my gun almost out of ammo. I dragged myself into the attic and detonated the final incendiary pack just as the biggest one breached the floorboards. Flames chewed through the house. The thing screamed. I dove through the attic window and landed in a snowdrift so hard I blacked out. When I came to, the house was burning behind me. The creatures were gone, for now. I limped down the road until I saw it, the church. Old stone, broken steeple, rotting wood, but it was still standing. I collapsed inside, barricaded the doors, and laid my rifle across my chest. There were no whispers tonight, just the sound of the town breathing. The church smelled of wet stone, rotting wood, and something older, something that didn't belong to the world outside. I wrapped my shoulder the best I could with gauze from my field kit, though it barely slowed the bleeding. Every heartbeat sent a spike of pain through my arm. Every breath tasted of ash and copper. I set my last 2 magazines on the pew beside me. 5 grenades, 2 magnesium flares, a satchel charge I'd been saving for something bigger. It wasn't enough, but it would have to be. Outside, Ashmourne shifted. I heard it, not wind, not footsteps, but bones grinding under earth, houses crumbling, streets buckling. The town wasn't dying. It was waking up. At 12:03 a.m., the first wave hit. They didn't knock this time. No pretense, no whispers. They smashed through the stained glass windows like a flood of flesh and claws and snapping teeth. The pews shattered. Glass rained down. I fired until the rifle clicked dry, then switched to pistol, dropping them one by one. But they didn't stop coming. Every time one fell, another took its place, dragging its carcass across the floor. They weren't trying to kill me. They were trying to drag me down. I threw the first flare and bought myself 5 precious seconds of screaming, burning chaos, long enough to spot it. The hatch at the base of the altar, old, iron-bound, half-rotted, just wide enough for a man to squeeze through. I sprinted, shoulder slamming into the altar with a sick crack of wood, threw the hatch open and dropped into darkness. The things howled above me, but they didn't follow, not yet. The tunnel stank of rot and blood and something chemical. It wasn't natural. It wasn't built by human hands. The walls pulsed, fleshy, veined, and far ahead, glowing in the black, I saw it. The heart, it wasn't a metaphor. It was real. A towering, throbbing mass of muscle and bone and screaming mouths, stitched together from what had once been the people of Ashmourne. Faces stared out from the mass, eyes rolling in agony. Arms reached out only to be absorbed again. It hung suspended over a pit that pulsed with dark liquid, feeding it, keeping it alive. It saw me. I don't know how I knew, but I felt it. The hate, the hunger. It beat once, twice, and the tunnel shook. I ran. Creatures burst from the walls around me, smaller than the ones above, but faster, hungrier, snapping with serrated teeth. I dropped two with headshots, crushed a third under my boot. I didn't have time to fight. I only had one chance. I primed the satchel charge. 30 seconds. I sprinted toward the base of the heart, throwing grenades in wild arcs to scatter the swarm. A claw ripped into my thigh. Another tore at my back. I didn't stop. I wouldn't stop. I slammed the charge into a pulsing vein at the base of the heart, yanked the pin, and turned to run. 20 seconds. The tunnel walls closed in behind me, creatures swarming from every crevice. 15 seconds. I blasted my way forward. Grenade, pistol, flare, anything to keep moving. 10 seconds. The hatch was in sight. But so were the creatures. Hundreds of them surging toward me, shrieking in every stolen voice they had ever stolen. 5 seconds. I hurled myself up through the hatch, slammed the door, and kept running. The explosion ripped through the earth like the wrath of God. The church erupted behind me in a column of fire and black blood. The ground split open. Buildings toppled like toys. The creatures screamed in a single unified voice, high and thin and full of despair. And then, silence. Ashmourne began to collapse in on itself. The ground cracked, the air twisted. The town was dying, and it wanted to take me with it. I stumbled down Main Street, half blind, blood freezing against my skin. I could hear the buildings groaning, feel the earth sag under my boots. Behind me, a monstrous form, the last remnant of the heart, clawed its way out of the rubble, shrieking hate into the snowstorm. It was burning, falling apart, but still coming. I didn't have a bullet left to spare, didn't need one. I led it toward the bridge at the town's edge, the old wooden structure spanning the frozen river. At the last second, I dove sideways. The creature charged onto the bridge, and the bridge gave way. The thing plunged into the freezing black water, and the current dragged it screaming under the ice. Gone. I collapsed in the snow and watched Ashmourne sink into itself. Flames devoured the town. The wind howled through the empty streets, and the voices, the endless mocking whispers, finally went silent. When I stumbled back to the extraction point the next morning, bleeding, half frozen, and barely conscious, the recovery team didn't say a word. They just loaded me into the chopper and flew me home. I survived Ashmourne. But even now, sometimes, when the nights are cold and the snow falls just right, I hear them again, calling my name, waiting for the third night. If you're still breathing, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you dare. There are plenty more nightmares waiting for you. And whatever you do, don't forget to ring the bell. It's the only way you'll hear the warnings in time.